Kia ora koutou. I'm Mike Bush from the Independent Review Panel, and today I'm going to take the opportunity to share with you the process we undertook, what worked well, what didn't work well, and key recommendations for the future. By way of background, the review panel was tasked with assessing the operational performance of the Hawke's Bay Civil Defence Emergency Management Group's response to Cyclone Gabrielle. We did this through the lens of what we call the 4 R's, which is considered best practice. It covers reduction, readiness, response, and recovery, with an additional R for resilience, which is also important here. I should reiterate that we were asked to take a constructive, forward-looking approach. The review was not about apportioning blame. This was about identifying learnings to help improve resilience and strengthen Hawke's Bay's emergency management capability for the future. In terms of process, our panel spoke with a range of people involved in the response, from mayors, council chief executives, civil defence staff, partner agencies like fire and emergency and police, right through to mana whenua and key community and business leaders. There was an extensive document research and review process. We also undertook a series of targeted focus groups in key communities, direct engagement with post-settlement groups in mana whenua, and there was an online community survey which received more than 1,000 responses. It's clear that there were some things in the group's response that worked well, and we absolutely need to recognise that. Firstly, we found that the group's plans were generally sound, and the response benefited from strong governance and a history of working effectively together. Hawke's Bay's mayors displayed a strong leadership right up front as well. Everyone involved in the early stages of the response was well-intentioned, and despite the magnitude, scale and pace of the event, those on the ground did some brave and innovative things. Marae-based systems across the region again proved how deeply connected and capable they are in providing welfare and support to their communities. And in the case of Cyclone Gabrielle, they have extensive knowledge of their whenua, which can be vital during a natural disaster response effort. There's no doubt that people were operating in what were extremely challenging circumstances, often without the full picture of what was happening on the ground. As previously mentioned, the purpose of this review was to identify learnings. So it's important to highlight things that didn't work well and areas for improvement for the future. One of the key things I'd say here is that the severity and extent of the event quite simply overwhelmed the response and everyone involved. And there's no question there was some catastrophic consequence. Another key finding of the review was that the region had an optimism bias, meaning they took a best case scenario as opposed to planning for a worst case scenario, which is what we got. Some contributing factors included a certain level of overconfidence based on prior emergency events, a lack of scenario planning mindset, and a lack of multi-agency operational experience. This was intensified by a lack of situational awareness, made worse by the multiple communication failures, total power outages, and in some cases a lack of reliable and accurate data. All of this meant the group struggled to direct and coordinate first responders, partner agencies, tangata whenua, council teams, and didn't fully leverage the capability of Hawke's Bay's communities, volunteers, contractors, businesses, and utility providers. One thing I'd highlight here is that the current model of emergency management in New Zealand often has us leaning on well-intentioned people, including volunteers, many of whom are inconsistently trained, lacking in operational experience, and have full-time day jobs to contend with. In Hawke's Bay, the pool of fully trained and operational competent personnel was simply too shallow, and this led to staff inefficiencies, confusion, and burnout. There is no doubt that the current national emergency management system is not fit for purpose. Instead, it simply sets good people up to fail time and time again. We presented the independent review report to the Group Joint Committee, and they made it very clear they're 100% committed to working with central government and with local community, Zooey and business leaders to ensure identified learnings and recommendations are used to strengthen Hawke's Bay's readiness and response capabilities for the future, which is great. In terms of recommendations, we see these falling into two broad categories. At a regional level, we feel Hawke's Bay's approach to emergency management would benefit from being more inclusive and from having a more formalised approach to bring in iwi Māori and the wider Hawke's Bay community into the system in a structured and deliberate way. In our review report, we're actually proposing a future regional model that uses regional hubs to concentrate nationally assured professional emergency management expertise, whilst also encouraging enhanced local and mana whenua networks and self-sufficiency. We hope this is something the region considers for the future. It's also important to reiterate the national challenge that's at play here too. The current national emergency system is quite simply not fit for purpose. Our strong advice is that the Hawke's Bay region needs to work closely with central government and the national response agencies to build and implement an improved system of civil defence and emergency management at local, regional and national levels. Obviously, all of this is bigger than the Hawke's Bay. This is about ensuring that the lessons identified through this independent review process become lessons learned for everyone involved in the civil defence system right across New Zealand. Thank you for taking the time to listen. There is a lot more available in the report, obviously, and I encourage you to jump online and read the report in full if you're interested in finding out more. Tēnā koutou katoa.